Professor Thea Winters never expected to fall in love on a dying world. As she brushed dust from the ancient stone column, the twin suns of Kepler, 186f cast long shadows across the ruins. 6 months into her solo expedition studying the remnants of an unknown civilization, she had grown accustomed to the eerie silence of this abandoned planet. The air shimmed with heat as Thea documented the strange symbols etched into the weathered stone. Her research suggested this outpost was at least 50,000 years old, but the technology scattered among the ruins defied Earth's current understanding of physics. Fragments of crystalline computers still hummed with trace energy, and certain metals seemed to resist the planet's intense gravity. A cloud of red dust devils danced across the dig site, temporarily obscuring her view. When they cleared, Thea froze. Something had changed in the landscape. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. Movement where there had been stillness. She wasn't alone anymore. The figure emerged from behind a fallen pillar, tall and graceful with iridescent copper skin that seemed to shift colors in the dying light. Thea's hand instinctively went to her sidearm, but she didn't draw it. The alien's four-fingered hands were empty, raised in what appeared to be a universal gesture of peace. Their eyes met across the ruins, Thea's brown human ones locking with the alien's silver oval ones. Neither moved. The alien wore some kind of environmental suit, but no helmet. It could breathe this atmosphere just as she could. A researcher, then. Not a soldier. "I am Thea," she said slowly, pointing to herself. Her universal translator was useless against an unknown language, but basic communication had to start somewhere. The alien touched its chest with one elegant hand. "Zyril," it responded in a melodic voice that somehow conveyed masculine energy despite its alien timbre. He gestured at the ruins around them, then at a device strapped to his forearm that projected a holographic display. Thea recognized mathematical equations floating in the air between them. Universal constants. The speed of light. Planck's constant. Pi. He was establishing a basis for communication through science. Smart. She pulled out her tablet and quickly sketched out the Fibonacci sequence, then held it up. Zyril's expression shifted in what might have been a smile as he added the next number in the sequence to his holographic display. For the next hour, they traded mathematical concepts back and forth, slowly building a crude symbolic language. Thea learned that Zyril was indeed a researcher, sent to study the ruins just as she had been. His people called themselves the Vikath, and they too had discovered this world by tracking unusual energy signatures. The suns began to set, temperature dropping rapidly as it always did on this harsh planet. Thea gestured toward her base camp nearby, where solar-powered heaters would keep them warm through the freezing night. Zyril hesitated, but another bitter wind made the decision for him. Inside her prefab shelter, Thea watched in fascination as Zyril examined her equipment with careful, precise movements. His copper skin shifted through shades of blue and gold as he moved, and she realized it was some kind of bioluminescent response to emotion. They spent hours comparing notes through drawings and equations. Both their species had detected strange energy patterns emanating from this world. Both had found evidence of an ancient civilization far more advanced than their own. And both had come seeking answers about who these precursors were and why they had vanished. As the night wore on, Thea found herself growing increasingly intrigued by her alien companion. Despite his otherworldly appearance, his curiosity and methodical approach to problem-solving felt deeply familiar. She recognized the same drive that had brought her across light years to this desolate world, the need to understand, to uncover truth, to push the boundaries of known space. A dust storm howled outside, rattling the shelter's walls. Zyril's skin flickered to a deep purple as he studied her star charts, comparing them to his own holographic maps. Their stars had different names, but the galaxies were the same. Two species, evolving on opposite sides of the same cosmic neighborhood, finally meeting in the ruins of something far greater than either of them. The mystery of this world had just become far more complex. But as Thea watched Zyril work, his movements precise and elegant in the dim light, she felt a spark of something beyond scientific curiosity. This encounter would change everything, for her, for humanity, for the Vykath. And somewhere in the depths of these ruins lay answers that would bind their fates together in ways neither of them could yet imagine. Dawn broke across the ruins, painting the ancient stones in shades of crimson and gold. Thea and Zyril had spent the night comparing research, and a discovery was taking shape, one that would change everything they thought they knew about this world. Their combined data showed energy signatures converging at a point deep beneath the ruins. While human sensors had detected traces of power, Vykath technology revealed complex patterns that pulsed like a heartbeat far below the surface. The ruins weren't just remnants of a dead civilization, they were active. Here, Zyril indicated through their crude symbolic language, his copper skin rippling with excited blues as he projected a three-dimensional map of the underground complex. Door. Thea cross-referenced his scan with her own geological survey. What she had dismissed as natural cave formations now appeared intentional, a vast network of chambers and corridors hidden beneath the desert sands. She grabbed her pack, loading it with essential gear. Zyril understood without words, his own equipment already prepared. The entrance they sought was concealed beneath centuries of debris, but together they cleared it within hours. Thea's mechanical expertise complemented Zyril's advanced scanning technology. Where human tools failed to breach the ancient metal, Vykath energy cutters sliced through with precision. When Zyril sensors were blocked by unknown interference, Thea's knowledge of archaeological patterns helped them navigate. The passage descended steep and straight into darkness. Their lights revealed walls covered in intricate patterns, not just decorative, but mathematical. Equations sprawled across the surfaces, describing concepts that made Thea's head spin. Zyril's skin pulsed with deep greens of concentration as he documented everything. "Look at this," Thea breathed, running her hand along a series of symbols. Even without fully understanding the language, she recognized the elegant simplicity of advanced physics. They weren't just describing the universe, they were rewriting its rules. Zyril moved closer, his tall frame casting strange shadows in the beam of her headlamp. His shoulder brushed hers as he studied the wall, and Thea felt a slight electric tingle at the contact. His bioluminescence flickered briefly to rose gold before settling back to analytical green. The passage opened suddenly into a vast chamber that took their breath away. Crystalline structures rose like frozen fountains, still humming with traces of power after millennia. At the center stood a pillar of light, or something that resembled light while defying all known physics. It twisted through impossible geometries, casting no shadows yet illuminating everything. Their attempts at communication grew more sophisticated as they explored the chamber. Through a combination of mathematics, diagrams, and increasingly intuitive gestures, they began to grasp the magnitude of their discovery. This facility wasn't just a research station or library, it was a key to understanding the fundamental forces of reality itself. Hours blended together as they worked side by side, documenting and analyzing. Thea found herself watching Zyril as much as the ancient technology. His movements were precisely calculated yet somehow graceful, his four-fingered hands dancing across holographic interfaces. The way his skin shifted colors with his thoughts fascinated her, deep blues for concentration, flashes of gold for excitement, and occasionally that curious rose tone when their eyes met. They discovered a central console, its crystalline surface still responsive after 50,000 years. As Zyril interfaced his technology with it, ancient data began streaming through his holographic display. Thea watched in awe as three-dimensional star charts filled the chamber, showing the galaxy as it had existed when these ruins were new. But something was wrong. Zyril's skin suddenly pulsed with alarming crimson patterns. He gestured urgently at the display, where a simulation was playing out. Thea's blood ran cold as she understood, it was showing the death of stars. Not natural deaths, but a wave of destruction sweeping through the galaxy. The ancient civilization hadn't abandoned this world. They had been running from something. A deep rumble shook the chamber. Dust and small stones rained down as the ground shifted beneath them. The pillar of impossible light began to pulse erratically, its twisted geometries spinning faster. Thea stumbled, and Zyril caught her with lightning reflexes, pulling her close. His skin blazed with protective amber as debris clattered around them. The danger passed quickly, but neither of them moved immediately. Thea could feel the alien warmth of him, the strange rhythm of his heartbeats. His bioluminescence had shifted to that rose-gold color again, more intense than before. When their eyes met this time, something unspoken passed between them, an understanding that transcended their biological differences. They had started this expedition as two separate scientists studying a dead world. Now they were standing at the edge of a mystery that threatened both their species, and the only way forward was together. As they reluctantly separated to secure their equipment, Thea realized that the most fascinating discovery in these ruins wasn't the ancient technology or the looming threat. It was the way her heart raced every time Zyril's skin turned that particular shade of rose gold. The tremors grew more frequent as Thea and Zyril delved deeper into the facility's databanks. Each rumble sent cascades of dust showering from the crystalline ceiling, but neither of them could stop now. Not when they were so close to understanding. Through their increasingly sophisticated combination of mathematics and gesture language, they had pieced together a terrifying truth. The ancient civilization, which Zyril's people called the Shapers and Thea's research dubbed the Precursors, hadn't just been scientists. They had been guardians, watching over something buried deep within the planet's core. Zyril's holographic displays filled the chamber with simulations of stellar death. Not natural supernovas, but something far worse. A wave of entropy that consumed everything in its path, breaking down the fundamental forces that held reality together. The Shapers had found a way to contain it, to trap a portion of this cosmic horror within the heart of this world. The ruins weren't just a research station, they were a prison. And now, after 50,000 years, the bonds were weakening. Time, Zyril indicated urgently, his copper skin pulsing with alarming patterns of red and black. His holographic calculations showed energy levels rising exponentially. Whatever was trapped below, it was waking up. Thea cross-referenced the data with her own readings. 3 days, she responded, sketching the number in their shared mathematical language. Maybe less. They worked frantically to understand the containment systems. The Shapers had built redundancies upon redundancies, layers of technology that merged physics and dimensions in ways that challenged everything either of them had been taught. But with each passing hour, more systems failed. A particularly violent tremor sent them both stumbling. Zyril caught Thea again, but this time his touch lingered. His skin rippled with that now familiar rose-gold color, mixed with deeper hues she hadn't seen before. The universal translator was still useless with his language, but some forms of communication transcended words. Thea found herself reaching up to touch his face, tracing the elegant angles that seemed both alien and increasingly dear to her. His skin shimmered beneath her fingers, bioluminescent patterns swirling in response to her touch. For a moment, all the danger and urgency faded away. Then another quake rocked the chamber, harder than before. Ancient metal groaned as support structures stressed beyond their limits. A section of ceiling collapsed nearby, and they sprang apart to dodge the falling debris. Reality crashed back with brutal force. They had 3 days to prevent an apocalypse that could consume not just this world, but spread across the galaxy. Their peoples were counting on them, even if they didn't know it yet. More determined than ever, they returned to their work. Thea's archaeological knowledge helped decode the Shapers' warning systems, while Zyril's advanced technology interfaced with the ancient machines. Together, they began to understand the containment field's architecture, and its fatal flaw. The field required incredible amounts of energy to maintain, drawing power from the planet's core. But the core was cooling, its energy depleting. Soon it wouldn't be enough to hold back the entropy wave. Here, Thea indicated, pointing to a section of equations that described the containment field's resonance frequency. We might be able to reinforce it, but... She didn't need to finish. Zyral's skin had already shifted to grave purple tones. The only power sources strong enough to supplement the failing containment field were their ship's engines. Using them would mean stranding themselves on this dying world, with no guarantee of rescue. Worse, the containment field would require constant adjustment as the planet's core continued to cool. Someone would have to stay behind to maintain it, manually compensating for the power fluctuations. Someone would have to sacrifice everything to keep the prison sealed. Their eyes met across the holographic displays, understanding passing between them without need for translation. They had each come to this world seeking knowledge, but found something far more precious instead. Now that discovery might tear them apart. A new tremor shook the chamber, stronger than any before. Ancient support beams screamed in protest as the ground buckled. Thea lost her footing and slammed hard against a crystal column. Pain lanced through her shoulder, but Zyral was there in an instant, helping her up. His skin blazed with protective amber shot through with that deeper rose gold. Written in those colors was everything they hadn't found words to say, everything that made their impossible connection more important than their differences. They had 3 days to save 2 civilizations from a threat they barely understood. But as Thea looked into Zyral's alien eyes, she silently made another vow: she would find a way to save him too, no matter the cost. Time slipped away like sand through their fingers as Thea and Zyral raced to implement their desperate plan. The tremors had become nearly constant now, the ancient facility groaning under forces it was never meant to contain for so long. Converting their ship's engines into power sources for the containment field required precision they could barely maintain as the ground shook beneath them. Thea's hands were scraped raw from crawling through maintenance ducts, rewiring systems that hadn't seen light in millennia. Zyral's copper skin had taken on a pale, exhausted cast, though it still flickered that telling rose gold whenever their eyes met. Connection stable, he indicated through their shared mathematical language, his holographic display showing power flowing from his ship's quantum drive into the ancient systems. The stream of energy was beautiful but costly. With every passing minute, the drive degraded further. Soon it would be beyond repair. Thea's own ship was next. As she worked to integrate its systems, she couldn't help but think of the message pod she had launched into space before beginning this work. A warning to Earth about what they had discovered, and a goodbye she hoped her family would understand. Zyral had sent a similar message to his people. Whether either would be believed in time to matter was another question entirely. A massive quake sent them both sprawling. Warning lights flashed across the ancient displays as the containment field fluctuated dangerously. The entropy wave pushed against its bonds, reality itself warping around the edges of its prison. No time, Zyral's skin pulsed with urgent patterns. Must complete connection now. They worked in desperate synchronization, their movements falling into an unconscious harmony born of days spent learning each other's rhythms. Where Thea's smaller hands couldn't reach, Zyral's longer fingers made adjustments. When his unfamiliarity with Earth technology slowed him, her expertise guided them forward. The final connection sparked between them, energy surging through makeshift conduits into the ancient machinery. For a moment, everything seemed to hold. The tremors eased, the warning lights stabilized. Then Thea noticed something in the power readings that made her blood run cold. The containment field was drawing more energy than their calculations had predicted. At this rate, both ships' engines would burn out within hours, not the days they had planned for. And when they failed, Zyral saw it too. His skin rippled with complex patterns of grief and determination as he pulled up new simulations. There was only one way to maintain the field long enough for help to arrive. One of their ships would have to be sacrificed completely, its power core deliberately overloaded to provide a massive energy surge. That surge would stabilize the field long enough for the remaining ship to maintain it for several weeks, long enough for rescue to arrive. But the overload would destroy not just the ship, but everything within half a kilometer. Whoever triggered it wouldn't survive. Their eyes met across the holographic displays, and Thea saw her own resolve mirrored in Zyral's alien features. Neither would allow the other to make that sacrifice. Neither could bear to watch the other die. Another violent tremor rocked the facility. Support beams cracked overhead, raining debris around them. The containment field's power readings spiked dangerously as the entropy wave pushed against its weakening bonds. Zyral moved with sudden purpose toward the surface passage, his skin blazing with protective colors. He would try to reach his ship first, to take the choice from her. But Thea knew these ruins better after months of study. She knew another way up. As she raced through the ancient corridors, her mind filled with images of the past few days. The way Zyral's skin changed colors with his thoughts. The precise grace of his movements. The growing understanding between them that transcended their biological differences. She had traveled across the galaxy seeking knowledge of long-dead aliens, only to find something infinitely more precious in a living one. She reached the surface first, the twin suns harsh after days underground. Her ship waited nearby, its engines already connected to the containment field. All it would take was a few commands to begin the overload sequence. She could save him. Save his people's chance to learn from humanity. Save whatever future might be possible for their two species. Running footsteps behind her. Zyral's voice calling out in his melodic language. She didn't need a translator to understand her name in those alien tones, or the desperate plea they contained. Thea's hands flew across her ship's controls, tears blurring her vision as she input the overload sequence. Just a few more commands and... Thea's fingers hovered over the final command sequence as Zyral reached her. His skin blazed with colors she had never seen before, desperate violets and fierce golds swirling together with that now-beloved rose tone. He grabbed her hands, pulling them away from the controls with gentle but immovable strength. The ground buckled beneath them as another tremor shook the ruins. The entropy wave was pushing harder against its bonds, reality warping visibly around them as spacetime began to fray. They had minutes, perhaps seconds, to decide. Zyral's holographic display sprang to life between them, showing a new set of calculations. In their frantic race to save each other, they had both missed something vital. The Shapers hadn't built their containment field to last forever, they had designed it to adapt. The ancient equations scrolled past, revealing a terrible beauty in their complexity. The containment field wasn't failing, it was evolving. The entropy wave's prison was redesigning itself, drawing power from the very force it contained. Like an immune system learning to fight a disease, the field was becoming stronger through its struggle to hold back chaos. But it needed a catalyst to complete the transformation. A massive surge of energy, exactly what they had planned to create with their suicide mission. Only now they realized they didn't need to sacrifice a ship's entire power core. The combined output of both their engines, carefully modulated through the ancient systems, could provide exactly what was needed. They worked with desperate speed, four hands moving in perfect synchronization across human and alien controls. Thea's expertise in Earth technology complemented Zyral's advanced understanding of energy dynamics. Where their languages failed, mathematics bridged the gap. The entropy wave surged against its prison one final time, reality screaming around them as fundamental forces twisted in impossible ways. Zyral pulled Thea close, his skin blazing with protective amber as space itself seemed to bend and fold. Then everything stopped. The tremors ceased. The warning lights faded. The ancient facility hummed with renewed power as the containment field completed its metamorphosis. Their combined readings showed the entropy wave still present but now fully contained, its own chaotic energy turned back upon itself in an eternal loop. They had done it. Not through sacrifice, but through cooperation. Not by dying for each other, but by finding a way to live for each other. Exhausted but triumphant, they emerged from the ruins into the light of the twin suns. Their ship sat silent nearby, engines depleted but reparable. It would take weeks of work to restore them to functioning condition, weeks they would spend together learning more about each other and the incredible discovery they had made. As rescue ships from both their peoples approached the planet weeks later, Thea and Zyril stood among the ruins where they had first met. So much had changed since that moment, not just between them, but for both their civilizations. The messages they had sent had been received and believed. Even now, joint research teams were on their way to study the Shaper's containment field. Their peoples would work together to unlock its secrets, sharing knowledge and resources in ways neither had imagined possible before. But the greatest discovery wasn't the ancient technology or the averted catastrophe. It was the understanding that love could flourish in the most unexpected places, bridging gaps between worlds and species. As Zyril's skin shifted through all the colors that meant joy and devotion in his people's way, Thea reached up to trace the now familiar angles of his face. They had come to this dying world as strangers, representatives of civilizations that had never met. They would leave it together, pioneers of a future neither of their peoples had dreamed possible. And somewhere, Thea liked to think, the ancient Shapers would have approved of their prison being transformed into a bridge between worlds. The twin suns set on the ruins one final time, casting long shadows across the desert. But neither Thea nor Zyril feared the darkness anymore. They had found their light in each other, a love that defied physics and transcended species. And in that love lay the seeds of a future bright enough to outshine even the entropy at the heart of their world. The story of the human archaeologist and the alien researcher would be told for generations on both their worlds. But only they would ever truly know how it felt in those first moments, two souls reaching across the vastness of space to find something beautiful and new in each other's differences. And that was a discovery greater than any ruins could ever hold.